in terms of magazine, now that you mentioned magazine, in terms of what is the capacity of the magazine?
Sniper rifle is always 5-round magazine.
5 rounds.
Always
magazine.
5-round magazine.
Now this is a P-72 assault rifle manufactured by the SSS Defence. This is chambered for the 7.62 into 39, which means that it is as same as the AK-47 caliber.
45 M72 राइफल, इससे हम 30 राउंड मैगजीन फायर कर सकते हैं।
All of these are individual sub-assemblies. It'll take you 10 minutes to put all of this together. Then you kind of go in, do all the necessary checks, gauging, and that's it. This is our CMM section, is also the quality control lab, one of the quality control labs that we have. So pretty much every single component makes its way in here. Okay. It is benchmarked against the data that we've already fed in as per the design.
Hello and welcome to ThePrint. I'm Snehesh Alex Philip. I'm here in Bangalore, the home to one of India's growing defense ecosystem that transits from aviation to small arms. Well, I'm happy to tell you that I am at SSS Defence, India's first indigenous small arms manufacturer, and they have managed to back even a foreign contract. What I'll do now is take you inside where we'll speak to the CEO of SSS Defence, Vivek Krishnan, as well as go to the floor to show you how a rifle is actually made. The two beautiful pieces of engineering that you see before me are the .338 Lapua Magnum sniper rifles. Well, these are the same rifles that have won an international order, and the numbers are just increasing. Welcome to ThePrint, Vivek.
Thank you so much for having me, Snehesh.
Thank you and congratulations for what you've really achieved and for what you've made. Appreciate it. But for our viewers, now we all know you as SSS Defence, India's indigenous small arms manufacturer. But how did this journey really begin?
Well, our journey began back in the year 2017. I think the very first step we had to do was to get hold of all of our industrial licenses for both small arms and ammunition, which we did. I guess in those days it was very common for companies to look at joint venture tie-ups with foreign firms, especially in the area of weapon systems, because you have to understand this. There's no culture of weapons building or firearms manufacturing in this country.
Except for what the DRDO was
Absolutely
doing and the OFBs were doing.
That's pretty much where it was. So the culture of making firearms was pretty much non-existent. Certain incidents happened thereafter which kind of gave us this thought that as much as we would like to kind of bring in a partner who had maybe several decades worth of experience in making firearms, we would always be constrained by what exactly they would offer to us as subsystems components and the knowledge which kind of is critical for making your own firearms. Making firearms based upon somebody else's prints is a fairly easy job, but then the knowledge of why is almost going to be lacking. And at that point in time, we took a conscious call to set up an R&D establishment here. We brought in people who had absolutely no knowledge of making firearms, but they were all brilliant engineers, people who had backgrounds in mechanical, guys who had backgrounds in metallurgy, chemical engineering, and so on and so forth, and just a whole bunch of wacky problem-solving guys. The first attempt that we did as far as building a firearm was coincidentally a sniper rifle.
Okay.
Now, it was very funny in those days, right? People would ask us, I can understand making a submachine gun or making a rifle, but why would you want to try and attempt a sniper rifle?
Exactly.
And our answer at that point in time was that, well, if we attempted for possibly the most difficult one. And even if it did fail, it would still be a good venture.
Okay.
And whatever we did learn in the course of that could basically translate into something which was slightly easier to build. It's a different matter that building a sniper rifle was one, building a whole suite of assault rifles thereafter was an equally complex task.
Absolutely.
Right? But the good part was that once we started working on the sniper rifles, the the culture of trying to build something which was a high precision weapon kind of got ingrained into the team. And the diligence which is required as far as perfecting a rifle was also something that we imbibed. This was an organic effort. It was an effort which started off from scratch, right? There were certain points in time when we must have gone on for months together without actually being able to find solutions to the problems that were nagging us. But then I guess that is part and parcel of actually doing something of your own. The failures are basically the stepping stone towards being able to put out something which is decent first. Yeah. And then once you hit that 90% mark, going from 90 to 95% is going to take away all of your life. And you might still not get to 100% any day. So I guess the sniper rifle was the first one. It ingrained a culture of, like I said, precision in all of us. And then we started working on the assault rifles. Also, at the same time, we should understand here that the marketplace when it came to small arms and infantry weapon systems slowly started becoming bigger for us, right? From looking at purely India as a marketplace, we started looking at the globe as a marketplace. And fine, it is common for people to say we're going to go international. But in our particular instance, it was made easier by shifting geopolitics as well. And I think that the benefit of that is now starting to come to us when we kind of getting more acceptability in certain markets for the quality of the products that we put out. I still think we're a work in process, right? Okay. We're not the ones who've actually reached that level, but we've achieved something which some of those foreign manufacturers have taken several decades to kind of go through. And I think that is really because of the quality of knowledge, the quality of talent that we have in here in engineering. It just needs the right kind of direction and the right mindset.
And another important thing that you're doing is also that you're also manufacturing now ammunition also. And viewers, I'm very happy to let you know that SSS Defence has actually backed international orders for ammunition too, which they are exporting ammunition outside India, right? So what's the big plan on the ammunition front, and what kind of ammunition are you really doing?
So our starting was always with small caliber ammunition. So we continue to focus on all of those calibers of ammunition which sync up with our rifles. So we have the 9x19, the 5.56 by 45, the 7.62 by 51, the 7.62 by 39, and the 338 Lapua Magnum.
You mentioned about the fact that, this is the sniper rifle. You said that you're now working on a marksman rifle.
That's right.
Now, for the viewers, what is the difference between the marksman rifle and the sniper? For example, when I started covering defense, right, in the armed forces, when you go, the Dragunov rifle was called as a sniper rifle, right? And everybody knows the Dragunov as a sniper rifle. But the fact is that it's not a sniper rifle, right? So for our viewers, if you could explain to us, what is the difference between this, a sniper rifle, and a marksman rifle?
Well, the origin of marksman rifles was really because you also needed to equip a squad. Sniper rifles are complex pieces of equipment. The level of competence which is required for someone to kind of get very proficient and be a master on the sniper rifle is also going to be much more taxing. But you can have good shots. You can have people who are good with accuracy. And you also need to equip a squad. Now, while equipping a squad, you cannot have something which is much heavier in weight and which requires far more of diligence and far more of effort to kind of get used to. So a marksman rifle actually fulfills that gap between an assault rifle and a sniper rifle. It's a squad weapon, right? Now, globally, people have been confusing the marksman rifle with the sniper rifle.
Exactly.
I guess at some point in time, way back when we started off, we must have also been confused between the two of them. But now we clearly realize that there is a market for designated marksman rifles because of the fact that they're much easier to carry around. They're much easier to get proficient in. The ranges that those rifles will actually operate in may not be those extreme precision long ranges, but they will be much shorter.
So what are those ranges that you're talking about?
So typically a sniper rifle, especially the 338 Lapa, will be 1,000 meters and upward, right? That's actually where it's felt, right? But a designated marksman rifle can fulfill the requirement all the way from 300 meters to 600 to 700 meters.
Okay.
Right?
300 meters is where, let's say an AK-47 would have a range of
At 300 meters, the AK-47 is not going to hit anything.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
It's going to be a one-off shot that's going to be hitting.
Yeah.
Right? Let's face it that way. And the 7.6239 by no means is a very accurate round, but a 7.6251 on the DMR is still going to be able to hit targets accurately at between 300 to 600 meters.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's much easier to carry along.
Much easier. There you go, viewers. Now, if you could walk us through the whole making process. For example, I see a finished good here, but how is this really made? And you mentioned that each part is made here, entire thing is made in India.
So let me be very, very open about this. It's difficult for people to believe this, but 100% of this rifle, save the scope,
Except for the scope.
Except for the scope here, 100% of the rifle is made in India. It's designed in India,
Including
it's
the
also
barrel?
made in India, including the barrel.
Including the
barrel, right? The barrel was something that took us almost about 9 months to fine tune just purely in terms of process. This is a sniper barrel on the 338 Lapua Magnum. It took us almost 9 months to get right to the level of accuracy which is required, and that accuracy is about 1 MOA and less. 1 MOA is essentially at 100 meters, you would be able to hit a target, and the group size would be 3 centimeters by 3 centimeters, which is really small. Some of these barrels have been putting in bullet into bullet, right, hole in hole, so to speak, and we've managed to kind of indigenize every single part of this rifle. Every single part of this rifle has been indigenous today.
Well, Vivek has been kind enough to actually take out the sniper rifle bit by bit, part by part, and lay it out for you. So, is this what the entire sniper rifle is all about?
That's pretty much the whole ingredient story.
Okay.
Right. So let me give you an idea as to how this whole thing comes together. So we're one of those few manufacturers in this world who've decided to go in and stick to a monolith chassis. It's a very light chassis, and it's just one single piece and enables recoil management the way it should do.
Okay.
Right? And we've loved the fact that it's given us results on the ground. So we've always decided to stick to this one. Now, what goes on to the monolith chassis is what you would see on this side. So you have the barrel and the receiver assembly. You've got the upper handguard. You've got the bolt. The bolt is basically also with a firing pin. And that's pretty much it. This whole system is indigenously designed, developed, and manufactured, very, very modular in nature. That's a box trigger. We don't have a whole lot of parts sticking around inside the chassis or inside the receiver. All of this gets housed in a single box. So the good part of this is you have someone who's in a field, has got some problems as far as the trigger not functioning. All he needs to do is put this into a courier box, send this back to us, and we give him a replacement. As simple as that. Okay. And some of these ideas have basically come in because of the fact that we've seen past cadres of snipers, not just in India, but also people who've told us about some of these issues and tried to work around some of these problems in the unique way that we can. And like I said, 10 minutes is all it takes for me to put this whole thing together.
Including the nuts and the screws and everything.
Well, whatever you see as nuts and screws in here would possibly take about 2 minutes for you to fit. All of these are individual sub-assemblies. It'll take you 10 minutes to put all of this together. Then we kind of go in, do all the necessary checks, gauging, and that's it. That's it. But understand this, it doesn't work as simple as that. Every one of these individual parts has already gone through a quality control process.
Yeah.
And that is the reason why it all fits together and you don't really need to work so hard when it comes to the final assembly. Every one of these parts, save the nuts and the bolts and the screws.
So all of these parts come together. I think the sniper, your sniper weighs what 7?
The 338 weighs close to about 7 to 7.5.
7 to 7.5.
And that's without the scope, yes.
And that is without.
And with the magazine, that's it.
Yeah. So in terms of magazine, now that you mentioned magazine, in terms of what is the capacity of the magazine?
Sniper rifle is always 5-round magazine.
5 rounds.
Always 5-round magazine.
Why is that so?
Well, in general, snipers would not be carrying too many rounds in the magazines.
Because it's stability factor.
No, it's just really about the fact that you don't get too many shots. Right? Okay. You are trying to minimize the number of shots, and you don't carry all of that many of that ammunition besides whatever fits into a magazine. There are also people who make 10-round magazines. We've stuck to 5-round magazines, that being a global standard. The designated marksman rifle, of course, will have a 20-round magazine.
Okay.
Right? Because it's a semi-automatic version. It's not a bolt-action rifle version.
So since we're talking about weight here, what would be the marksman rifle would weigh how much?
A marksman rifle would be much lighter. It would be sub 5 kilos.
Sub 5 kilos. And let's say an assault rifle that one would have. The AK
4
47 is
kilos and
very
less.
light.
4
Yeah.
kilos and less.
4 kilos and
Right.
less.
The
But the
carbine
AK
would be
203 is heavy. The 6R is really heavy.
See, again, weight across rifles is really a function of the caliber.
Okay.
Because the more, uh, as you move up the caliber chain, you'll also realize that you need to strengthen parts. You also need to give them a little bit of an over-engineering. For example, on the 338, you need to have a certain element of over-engineering because of the kind of power that the round generates. The same holds true across the board. So a pistol would be very, very light, and then you would have to go into a submachine gun, which is sub 3 kilos. And you move on to a carbine, which is between 3 and 3.5 kilos, and then you'll go on to a 4 kilo rifle, right? So the 6R is somewhere in that band of about 3.5 to 4, and so is the 7.62 by 39 that we have. It's in that 3.5 to 4 bracket. Weight, we'd like to kind of make them really light, but at some point in time, the added advantage of lightweighting does not really add much value, right? Because it might end up screwing the balance, and we don't want that to happen.
This is the sniper rifle. I also see multiple other parts being laid out. So what rifle is that?
Well, that was really for you to have a contrast between how modular a sniper rifle is vis-a-vis how an assault rifle is, and that's by far one of the most modular of the assault rifles. That's the P72, which is chambered for the 7.62 by 39. It's our answer to the AK. It's our answer to the AK-203. It's our answer to the global series of AKs that you might ever see, right? Again, every one of those parts has been indigenously designed and manufactured all the way from the barrel to the buttstock. This is a magazine. I've not shown the magazine here, but then that's a 30-round magazine that we have. The heart of the rifle is the receiver, and that's a fully milled receiver that you see exactly. The barrel is made by us here in India. All the other parts that you would see, which are the pressure parts, the bolt carrier group, the trigger parts and all of that, again, mil spec. So we've basically gone and tested them enough so that we can state here with reasonable authority that the level of failures that you would see on this would comply with what is required of global military operations.
Okay, so this is all military specification. You also do the modification kits for the AKs, right? And I still remember, I think I did this story about 2 years back when you managed to beat an Israeli firm which used to supply modification kits. You won the contract, and you won multiple contracts since then. So what does this AK modification kit really does?
An AK modification kit was actually, I'd say, it's one of those stepping stones for us to be able to build a good rifle. But I must say the AK modification kits are possibly one of the most difficult to make as well, because you've got so many different versions of the AKs. You've got a milled receiver AK, you've got a stamped receiver AK, you have a Romanian AK, you have an underfolding AK, you have a Bulgarian AK, and so on and so forth. So the sheer number of modifications that we had to do just to get those AK mod kits into service was humongous, a task. But what we really love is the fact that we managed to beat an incumbent who was a dominant player here and who was not even Indian in the first place. So it gives me a lot of pride. All due respect to the manufacturer of that particular kit, but then you could not be sitting around and watching them do all of that in your home country. So it really was a matter of pride for us.
Well, there you go. It's a matter of pride for us too. Now, what we'll do is that we'll actually go to the shop floor and we'll show you how a sniper is made, how the other rifles are made.
So I want you to hold on to this.
Okay.
Weighs just about a kg.
Yeah.
Now,
about a kg.
What you see here, which is as lightweight, starts off as a block of aluminum there. That's a block of aerospace grade aluminum.
This one?
That's right.
Okay.
And that's like over 20 kgs, right? Somewhere closer to the 30 kg mark.
Okay.
Then it goes through multiple series of processes. That's like subtractive manufacturing. That's
so
a term that you would use for
machine cutting.
Machine cut. And you would see that at every single point you're doing certain operations which will finally lead you to this.
Okay.
Right? What starts off from that becomes
what I'm
as lightweight, exactly, as lightweight as this. I'll show you the chassis actually being made on one of those machines. So we've got the tool path already being fed, and we have the chassis which is currently in its final stages of being machined.
So the aluminum block, the 30 kilo aluminum block, you put it in there.
It goes through multiple processes,
okay,
multiple quality control checks at different points, and then what you will finally get is this. after coating.
And how
Right.
much time does it really take?
Well, it does take its time, but we've optimized the process so that we are able to run multiple chassis at the same time.
Okay.
And we're also kind of reaching a certain point where we've cut down the time that it used to take before down to about 50% of what it was before.
50% of what it was.
Yes.
And these are specialized, sorry for asking all the dumb questions, but these are specialized machines that are there for this.
There is no specialization in these machines. These are very
Okay.
generic VMC machines that we have.
Okay.
What is critical is also the programming which goes into that.
Okay.
Right? What is critical is also the treatments that we would do as every single setup is completed, because something like this also has a tendency to warp.
Yeah.
Right? So it's
Yeah.
critical for us to maintain the structural integrity of the chassis as it goes through multiple stages. That's where the IP is. That's where the IP is. The IP is not just purely about, taking a block, putting it into the machines and getting it out on the other side. The IP is about what you do through the whole process.
Through the whole process.
That's
right. Well, so from the chasers, we now come to.
We're coming into the engine. That's the
Okay.
engine of your sniper rifle. This is what holds everything together. This is called the receiver,
Okay.
right? And it's a very special receiver because it goes into the 338 Lapua Magnum. This is one of the most tough builds that you will see on any sniper rifle. It starts off again as a block of steel. We do multiple pre-treatments before it
Yeah,
actually gets
yeah,
machined, and there
yeah.
are certain treatments that would happen after it is machined. This is where all the energy essentially is kept intact,
Yeah.
so that what you actually see on the other side is pretty much all of the bullets power. But at the same time, that same energy has got to be captured in such a way that it does not by any means impact the structural integrity of the whole rifle.
So it's not just the barrel that is important when you're making a rifle, but also the receiver, right?
The receiver is the heart.
Receiver is the heart.
Receiver is a heart. The
Okay.
barrel is important, no doubt about this. But the receiver is always the heart of a sniper rifle. In fact, the receiver is the heart of any weapon.
Any weapon for that.
Any
matter.
weapon. If there is anything that needs to be engineered really well on any weapon, it has to be the receiver.
So it's the same process which, like what the chasers that you mentioned, it's the same process that machine cutting.
It is
done
a
from the blade.
subtractive manufacturing technique that we have. We also use certain other mechanisms like EDM and wire cut.
Okay.
Those are used for extreme precision. For
Okay.
example, on the inside, you need to have very, very close tolerances,
Yeah.
right? Because that's where you have the movement of the bolt, and that's where you hold that level of control over the chamber and the way the bullet sits.
Yeah.
So on the inside, traditional subtractive manufacturing would not help, which is where we use certain other processes. We'll show you some of those processes as well.
Absolutely.
So what we need are extremely high precision cuts. You may not be able to get that with normal machine tools that you have in the CNC
Yeah.
machines, which is why we have this very thin wire there. That wire is made of brass.
Okay. Viewers, as you can see, this is a brass wire, and this is what actually does the fine, in layman's word, fine cutting, chopping,
The fine chopping.
the fine chopping of this receiver.
It's a surgical process, if I may kind of give you an idea.
Right.
Because you don't get that level of precision if you were to kind of put this into
In
a
the-
CNC machine.
okay.
There are certain parts of this which are done
Absolutely.
on the CNC machines and the VMC machines, but when they come in here, you're kind of going into very fine details.
So, but is this how the barrel is also manufactured? Since
Oh
you
no,
said
no,
that
barrels are manufactured in very, very different ways. Barrels are basically all about getting a very, very fine bore, an
Okay.
absolutely straight bore. That is where more than 50% of the hard work is.
So now you've got us to the barrel manufacturing process. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Earlier, the barrels were imported from
That's right.
abroad.
That's right. Bang on.
And now the barrel is manufactured here
Bang on.
from A to Z.
Absolutely, from A to Z.
So, what's the process? How is a barrel manufactured?
So, what we start with is a block of steel.
Okay.
And you have certain varieties of steel which are ideal for making barrels. That's proprietary to us. We end up doing a lot of pre-work before these barrels actually go into the machines themselves.
So, the rifle is largely made of the aluminium, but the barrel is made out of steel.
Always steel.
Always
Always steel.
Okay.
Right? Now, we've got multiple varieties of steel that we
And
work
these
with
steel are
as well.
procured from India or from abroad?
We still use certain raw materials from abroad,
Okay.
but we also have local sources
Okay.
for the raw material.
Okay.
It's all really about horses for courses. The kind of raw material I will choose will really be a function of the kind of purpose or the missions that I would end up doing.
Yeah.
Right? So there are certain steels that we will continue to import. And by the way, the whole world imports some of that raw material as well.
Okay.
The Americans would import it, the French would import it, and I don't see us being any different in that sense. Right?
Okay.
Because again, raw material is not a function of your capability. Raw material is a function of whether you were born in a good country with good mines or not. Right? And there are certain countries which are gifted in terms of natural resources.
Natural resources.
Right?
So this is like a the steel structure that you have, and what's the process then?
So we start with what is called a barrel blank.
Okay.
Right? There are certain pre-treatments that we will do before it comes
Yeah.
in. The most critical part of the barrel making process is the deep hole drilling and the reaming operations. The deep hole drilling is to be able to get a very straight bore. Right? That straight bore is the reason why you will have accuracy.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's a laborious process because of the fact that the kind of tooling that is needed and the kind of process going all the way into even the lubricant that you will use can become critical to being able to get a good barrel or a bad barrel.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So the process makes a lot of difference. We use what is called a button rifling technique, a
Okay.
very popular technique used by some of the world's best manufacturers. It is also one of those techniques which gives an enhanced accuracy into the barrel build.
Okay.
Right? So what starts off as a barrel blank first goes through the deep hole drilling and the reaming machine.
Yeah.
And after that is done, then we do the final rifling. Rifling is followed by stress relieving because in a process like rifling where you're actually making the tools go in and create those grooves, you create a lot of stresses and you need to relieve some of those stresses. If you don't relieve those stresses, then your rifle barrel is going to be junk. Right? And that in itself is proprietary.
So, this is a barrel that has been done for the snipers, right?
That's right. This is a sniper barrel.
So your factory, this floor must be like now is buzzing with work because of all the international orders.
That's right.
That you've backed for the snipers.
That's right. So you can actually see a whole bunch of sniper rifles going through production and being assembled.
Okay.
This
Wow.
is-
This is such a lovely sight to see. Now imagine, viewers, these are sniper rifles that are made in Bharat, which are being exported to a friendly country. Now that particular country bought, initial lot was in limited numbers, but now those numbers are increasing once they have really tried it out and felt that it is good as any other international.
That's
product
right.
there. This is an amazing story as far as India's defense ecosystem is concerned. Till now we used to import small arms, from other countries. Now we are actually exporting small arms.
That's right. There's got to be a time for everything, right?
Absolutely, this is such an amazing story that is unfolding right there before us. We are at the chrome plating plant of the SSS Defence. Now, what is chrome plating and why is it so important? And I think this is the big machine that I see out here.
Well, this is actually a whole chemical process that we have.
Okay.
Now, the value of the chemical process is that the objective of a user is to also try and make his barrel as robust and as long and give it as long a life as possible.
Yeah.
So a chrome plating on the inside of the barrel gives it an enhanced life. Now that's
okay.
where the complexity begins, because it's not like you're trying to kind of put in a coating on the outside of the barrel where there's much
Yeah.
more of an exposed area.
Yeah.
You have a very small bore, a small
Exactly.
dia,
Exactly.
right? And what you're trying to do here is give a uniform chrome plating.
Yeah.
The thickness of that is just between 20 to 25 microns.
Wow.
Right?
Okay.
That's all there is in there, right? And that's where the complexity is as well, because again, this is not about having machines. You can have all the machines that you want. We've got plenty of baths here, each one of those baths doing a certain job. We've got the actuating mechanisms on the top. So it's almost like, eliminating the man in the loop. It is PLC controlled, right?
Okay.
You just have people who supervise the whole process.
Yeah.
There isn't much of human interference once the process starts. Now, I want to kind of talk about how, public-private partnerships actually work. And this is a classic example.
Public-private partnership.
That's
This
right.
one, prompt.
That's right. Because you had the Armament Research and Development Establishment,
Yeah.
which was trying to
The
work
RDE.
on chrome plating for barrels.
Yeah.
This was a pain point for them because the process in itself is one, complicated. Number two, requires a lot of testing before it can actually be proven.
Yeah.
This was a project that was given to us by ARDE, where we did a development of the chrome plating process and also proved to them that the chrome plating can actually work on their barrels.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Okay.
So we had the scientists from ARD and us working jointly on trying to prove the process, with them giving us a lot of support on the testing side, on taking this whole feedback loop into consideration, giving us feedback at appropriate junctures so that we were able to prove the process right. And as of today, we completed the whole process of proving the chrome plating on barrels. We've moved now from one single chamber, one single caliber to multiple calibers.
Okay.
And I believe this is a national asset in that sense of the word, because this facility is available to pretty much every gun manufacturer in India. It is not
So
something
anybody?
which is anybody.
Even a rival can.
Absolutely, yes. Even the government can. And that's
Okay.
the way that we've tried to kind of build. This is capability building. This is
Okay.
not about us trying to kind of keep it to ourselves. Because the government was involved in the whole process, we were able to evolve much faster.
So prior to this, where was the chrome plating being done?
Chrome plating had been attempted on multiple occasions in the government setups.
Yeah.
But as you well know, there is a difference in the way that the private sector looks
Absolutely.
at projects. We have timelines, we've got mandates, we cannot be extending ourselves for too long.
True.
And that's one of the reasons why we try and crash as many things as possible, but keeping a very tight control on quality. So I had close to about 7 of our engineers working in the course of that, with an equal number of engineers from the government side trying to prove this whole process. The value of this process is such that it can now migrate and transition to multiple varieties of barrels. It's not just one single barrel.
It's not just one single.
You can have a 5.56, a 9x19, a 7.6251. You can have a sniper barrel. You can have as many as you can imagine. And the process would apply with changes to the way that the tools are made and the way that the process is run.
Well, that's a very, information that pleases the heart, because this is an example of public-private partnership in its true form.
Yes.
I think that is what is really needed to boost up the ecosystem here.
Absolutely, and DRDO did a phenomenal job. ARD was totally involved in the course of this project to make this a success.
So from here, what else are you showcasing us?
I'm going to show you a certain process that we've been working on. This is a process called Cerakote.
Okay.
That, what you saw, is all about getting coatings on the inside
Yeah.
of the barrel. This is all about giving you a beautiful appearance and phenomenal strength and abrasion resistance.
Okay.
And that's a process which is called Cerakote, and we'll take you through how exactly the coating process is done.
Okay.
The process of coating that you will see is called Cerakote.
Okay.
And the kind of Cerakote that we do is very specific to firearms. We're the only ones who've been empaneled by Cerakote globally to undertake this particular coating in India,
Okay.
especially for military-grade firearms.
Okay.
It is a process that starts with a chemical. There is a certain series of steps that you're supposed to be doing to mix up the chemicals, and then there is a very specific way in which you're supposed to do the coating. You need fine hands. You also need to have a lot of diligence, because of the fact that the coating has to not just go through, it's not just purely about the final, layer that he puts in. There are certain pre-treatments that you have to do to the metal before it actually gets coated.
Okay.
Right? Traditional coatings would mean that you stick to one single color.
Yeah. Just
We-
like what we saw.
Yeah.
Right now.
So what you just saw was
Yeah.
black.
Yeah.
Right. Now, Cerakote also enables us to kind of move from black to multiple coats. I can actually give you a whole camouflage coat in there. So instead of a soldier trying to kind of, prepare his own camouflage netting and so on and so forth, we could enable this whole camouflage at the production process itself.
But I can see this too. This seems to be from one of the para SF forces unit.
We have a lot of people
Insignia.
from the 9 Para SF working with us.
Yeah.
And that's the other reason why some of these things
Proud
do get
to
made.
be an Indian and our army. Wow. There you go. Well, yes, now that you mentioned one of the para SF units, I must tell you that in 2017, when they started off, the good part is that they had multiple units from the Indian Armed Forces who were actually working with them, right? Trying out their equipment, trying out their ammunition, and giving them the feedback, which actually enabled you to reach where you are much faster than in normal circumstances, right?
Absolutely. So when you have babies like us walking around, I think we also needed some adult supervision in those days, and especially those that kind of supervision did come to us from multiple units of the Indian
Yeah.
Army, the Special Forces battalions of the Army, of the Navy. A lot of people actually came in to support us in terms of giving us feedback, and that is how it works globally.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
let's not disabuse ourselves. There is no firearm manufacturer. There are very few defense OEMs, especially OEMs, because
Yeah.
the whole focus of ours here is to make a product. It is not to
Exactly.
make a sub-component or a sub-assembly, so to
Exactly.
speak. So unless and until we get that kind of feedback, and then the feedback loop is kind of going back, as in go back, improve, back again.
That's how the system.
That's how the
really
system
works.
actually gets to see what we're doing, and that's also the way in which we understand what they like and what they don't like.
Absolutely. I have with me Gurdeep Singh, who was earlier with the 6th Para SF, to tell us more about the carbine that you see right here in front of you. बताइए sir.
ये 5.56 × 45 M72 राइफल, इससे हम 30 राउंड मैगजीन फायर कर सकते हैं, 30 राउंड ऑटोमेटिक सेमी ऑटोमेटिक फायर कर सकते हैं। इसकी 3 पोजीशन है, सेफ, ऑटो और सेमी ऑटोमेटिक। उसके बाद में इसका जो बट है, इसको हम फायरर की अकॉर्डिंग कम ज़्यादा कर सकते हैं। ऊपर इसके पिकटनिंग रेल दिया गया है, जिसके ऊपर आप देख सकते हो एडिशनल साइड लगाया हुआ है। इसके अलावा ओपन साइड भी हम लगा सकते हैं। ये यहाँ पे इसका चार्जिंग हैंडल है, इसकी मदद से वेपन को हम चार्ज कर सकते हैं।
तो एक चीज़ बताइए, जैसे एक असॉल्ट राइफल हो गया नॉर्मल, है ना, फिर ये कार्बाइन है, तो आप जब ऑपरेशंस में कार्बाइन किस टाइम पे यूजफुल होता है?
जो CQB ऑप्स होते हैं उसके अंदर इसको
CQB इज द क्लोज क्वार्टर कार्बाइन ऑपरेशंस।
उसके अंदर इसको आसानी से हम यूज़ कर सकते हैं। इसके ऊपर एडिशनल साइड भी लगा सकते हैं, नाइट साइड भी लगा सकते हैं, ताकि हम आसानी से उसका अच्छा रिजल्ट ले सकते हैं।
So CQB is actually close quarter battle, rifles. So what he's saying is that this rifle, the carbines, are especially important when it comes to close quarter battles, right? Because the movement becomes easier, it is smaller, and because of that, gives more options to the user.
एयर प्रोटेक्शन।
This is, as I say, this is the 5.56 into 45 rifle made in Bharat SSS Defence.
करो फायरिंग।
Now, this is a P-72 assault rifle manufactured by the SSS Defence. This is chambered for the 7.62 into 39, which means that it is as same as the AK-47 caliber. ये बताइए, इसके बारे में कुछ बताइए। आपने AK-47 चलाया हुआ है, आपने ये भी चलाया हुआ है
सर,
तो इसकी क्या स्पेशलिटी क्या है?
ये भी सर AK की तरह सेम ही है। इसके अंदर भी हमने जैसे एडिशनल जो पिकटनी रेल दे रखा है, इसके ऊपर हम ओपन साइड से प्लस एडिशनल कोई साइड लगा के इससे हम फायर कर सकते हैं। जो इसका बट स्टॉक है वो एक्सटेंडेबल है, हम उसकी पोजीशन को चेंज कर सकते हैं। प्लस ये फोल्डेबल भी है, फोल्ड भी कर सकते हैं। AK-47 में जो चार्जिंग हैंडल है वो इस साइड में होता है, राइट साइड में होता है। इस साइड में इसका चार्जिंग हैंडल है जो इस साइड में दिया गया है।
ओके।
इसके अलावा इसके ऊपर जो एडिशनल पिकटनी रेल दिया गया है, एडिशनल कोई डिवाइस माउंट करना है या कोई हमने टॉर्च वगैरह लगानी है, उसके लिए इसके ऊपर दिया गया है।
तो जैसे ये आपने बोला कि इसका जो ये फोल्डेबल है और एक्सटेंडेबल है, AK-47 में वो सब है नहीं,
उसका फोल्डेबल है, लेकिन उसको आप उसकी पोजीशन को एडजस्ट नहीं कर सकते, उसको लेंथ को उसको एडजस्ट नहीं कर सकते।
एडजस्ट नहीं कर सकते
यस
हैं।
सर।
ठीक है। और जो बाकी जो AK के रेंज हैं जो आर्मी में जो यूज़ होते हैं, कुछ कुछ एडजस्ट कर सकते हैं और कुछ जो है वो स्टील के होते हैं, वो उसका उतना पकड़ होता नहीं है।
सर
Well, this is the .338 Lapua Magnum sniper rifle that you saw earlier, and we're going to try it out in terms of firing a shot. Now, this is a 150-meter underground testing range of SSS Defence. You wouldn't even imagine that in Bangalore there exists an underground firing range to test weapons. The place that I'm right now here, it's surrounded by multiple IT offices. Now this is the .338 Lapua Magnum round.
फायरिंग।
Now you've seen how the rifle is made, you've seen the rifle being fired, but towards the end, we've come into one of the most important section as far as Vivek and his product is concerned. Am I right, Vivek?
That's pretty much it. This is our CMM section, is also the quality control lab, one of the quality control labs that we have. So pretty much every single component makes its way in here.
Okay.
It is benchmarked against the data that we've already fed in as per the design. And then there is a comparative analysis which is done on every single part. For example, on the sniper rifles, the chassis, the receiver, the bolt; on the assault rifles, the receiver, the bolt carrier group, and the likes, and also pretty much every barrel goes through the CMM process here.
So what is the CMM process? What is this machine? How does it do the quality check?
In very simple terms, you have this whole thing moving on an air bed,
Okay.
and you have the sensor there, which is pre-programmed on every individual part to go and take measurements at multiple points. So based upon every single component, there'll be as low as maybe 10 and as high as 80 to 90
Okay.
points where the dimensions are taken in, and then they compared with what we have as the dimensional data on the design.
So what happens if it's not, it doesn't match the
So in
quality parameters?
in general, there are certain tolerances which are allowed. If it is within the tolerances, then we accept it. If it is not within the tolerances, then those parts go into rework.
The parts go into rework.
Right. And if it is possible to rework them, in general, it is possible to rework them. But once it goes into rework, then it again comes back into the
Okay.
CMM. So it doesn't go out of the CMM into assembly unless and until
Unless it's cleared
it's
by.
cleared by the QC here.
Well, there you go. I think that's the emphasis on quality that every Indian company should emphasize on. And as I said before, it gives me a great pleasure to come and visit SSS Defence and see the tremendous amount of work that they do, quality work that they do. But thank you so much, Vivek, for making us go through this entire process, and it's a great benefit to our viewers also. And our viewers, I'm sure you would have enjoyed this particular episode of the Defense Scope. Thank you so much, Vivek.
Thanks, man. Thanks.